Hello, everyone. This is Huda, Tim, and John, and we are going to be demoing some of the work that we've been exploring as part of the LD4P2 grant to look at how we can bring in information, linked data, and related information into the library catalog. So we're going to be demoing some things very quickly, such as knowledge panels, bringing in information from Wikidata, connecting to our own digital collections resources, looking at Discog integration, suggested searches from DBpedia, Wikidata, and Library of Congress subject headings, and trying to connect back to the catalog as concretely as we can, wherever we can. So this is a work in progress, and we'll be continuing to work on discovery in the 2 more work cycles, focusing on browsing and semantic search, and we can learn about that in our subsequent videos. We hope to be linking to documentation and more information about what we've learned and what we've done in the description for this video, or somewhere where you can access it through the wiki. So without further ado, this is just to kind of provide some grounding. This is our library catalog in production, as you can tell by our URL. And just to provide you some background, you have, this is a blacklight implementation that's bringing in our catalog results and has various facets. So those of you who are familiar with catalogs know what that looks like. So we're going to work through some examples very quickly. The first one being how we've looked at integrating knowledge panels and related work information. So what I'm showing you here is our production catalog version of A Tale of Two Cities. This is not the experiment. This is our actual production catalog and what it looks right now. We do have info boxes that go out to information from our authorized headings, Library of Congress, name authority, Library of Congress subject heading information, and bring that back into the catalog for a quick view. This is how we have our subject hierarchies laid out. And we are able to get some information about related works for other forms of this work. So what we did in our experiment with trying to see what information we could bring in from Wikidata, digital collections, and also to kind of expand upon the information we're getting from our Library of Congress authorities is first of all, you can see the subject headings. They're broken out a little bit like this, in a more hierarchical fashion. There are obviously UI concerns around whether we want to do this or not, but this was just to try and see if we could retrieve the hierarchy information and connect back to the authorized headings. So I'll talk about that in just a second. This is the knowledge panel for the author. This gets the Library of Congress authority info and then supplements that with information from Wikidata. So you can see the image from Wikidata. You can also go to the Wikidata entity if you were to click here. You can get notable work information, notable works for Charles Dickens, as well as influence relationships. And this not only, for relationships for influence, this not only gets the Wikidata entities back, it also allows you to look at the Library of Congress and information for these people. Any of these links is for searching the library catalog, and then these over here will take you to the actual entity. Digital collection, the external entity that we're getting information from, Wikidata or the Library of Congress entity. So another aspect of this work was not only how can we bring in information from Wikidata and Library of Congress and DBpedia, but also can we highlight connections to our own digital collections a bit better. So this is taking the subject or the name for Charles Dickens authority and going out to the digital collections portal that we have and doing a search. And each of these, again, it's a similar format to the above. This will search the catalog for that title, and then this will actually go out and to the digital library collection and get that individual resource. If I clicked on this, you can see it will open up this particular item. Similarly, if I were to click on, for instance, Maya Angelou from Wikidata, it would open up the Wikidata entry for Maya Angelou. Another thing I'd like to highlight over here on the left is narrative location. So we're getting the OCLC work ID for this work, and then querying Wikidata to see if we can get information related to that work. So on the bottom here, you have narrative locations. If I click on, for instance, Paris, it's actually going out to Wikidata, getting the FAST information, which is useful because this allows us to do a subject region search. Our subject facets in the catalog use FAST, so that's a fairly direct connection. It's also getting the bounding box or the coordinate information from Paris from Wikidata and displaying this using the leaflet. Our colleagues at Stanford are using Who's On First, and so that's definitely something we could do next time, but this was to see how to make these connections in the first place. If I click on France, Paris, it should open up, it's actually, in this case, in the same window, opening up the subject region search. And so if I wanted to, I could then use this to see related works for that region. I did also want to point out for the Wikidata information, so for this particular work, it is also going out to Wikidata and getting derivative works and notable additions, and you can open any of those in Wikidata itself. So also to kind of highlight additional subject heading information, Lincoln and Lombardo is a book by George Saunders. This is our production view of the catalog, so not the experiment, but what we have right now. To try out to see what kind of information we could get, you can see if I click on George Saunders, it will do the same thing you were seeing with Charles Dickens, get information from Wikidata. You see both types of influence relationships here, people that were influenced by George Saunders or for whom George Saunders is an influence. And then you could always do a search in the catalog to find out more about those people. Abraham Lincoln subject heading. So this is an example of coming in for a subject heading and getting information. You can get the Wikidata connection, and you can also see digital collections results and open up individual results in the digital collections portal, as well as search the catalog again using those keywords. So going back to the work we're doing to try to explore better integrations in the display for digital collections, another idea we had was how can we connect to subject searches within digital collections or author searches. So this example is for subject searches. If a person has gone ahead, for example, this is in the production catalog, they've gone ahead and actually selected the subject heading for Abraham Lincoln, what we were experimenting with, or are experimenting with, is tying that directly to a digital collection subject search. So the user's gone in, selected Abraham Lincoln from the, user's gone in and selected Abraham Lincoln from the subject facet heading, and they can also see the digital collections subject search results here on the left. They can see the keyword query or the subject heading query that resulted in the digital collection search here, and they can also look at individual results and open up any of these individual results if they wanted to. So that's an example of trying to integrate in information from digital collections into the search view itself. Another topic that we were looking at was, can we use information from other sources to provide suggested searches? So in this example, the user has typed in the keyword Lincoln, and John will now talk about this related searches section that we're seeing here.
That's right. The related searches are there on the left. Those related searches are populated from Wikidata, DBpedia, and Library of Congress suggestions via an asynchronous API request that doesn't slow the page down. And each one of the searches, we don't just take those sources' word for it, we validate every one of them against our own catalog to make sure that each search actually returns some meaningful results in our catalog. We do that with a two-step process. We run all the searches through a faceted search query against our Solr catalog. to make a first approximation as to whether they have any return values, and those that don't return anything from that simplified query, we examine them with an additional query one at a time, just to make sure that we don't miss anything.
Thank you. So that's an overview of the knowledge panel integration. In addition to the sources we've talked about, we've also been looking at Discogs as a source of information, and Tim will now talk about that.
So the main purpose of the Discogs integration was to attempt to supplement the existing metadata from musical recordings in the catalog. So here's one example. This is, we're actually looking at the production environment, and it had pretty minimal metadata associated with it. So what we've been able to do with the Discogs integration is using the Discogs authority in the QA server. We do an initial search, and using certain criteria, the title, the artist, in this case, the publisher number or catalog number is particularly important. And we get the initial response back from Discogs. From there, we take the Discogs ID and actually get all the data back in JSON format from Discogs. So we're able to fill in all these areas where the label is highlighted in blue have come back from Discogs, and then there's this legend here. And the link will actually, at the legend, will actually take the user to the Discogs database page for this particular work.
Tim, don't forget about that image. That looks great.
Why, thank you, John. And here it is. So this is the actual Discogs page. And then one other thing we did with Discogs and Wikidata, yeah, we can go ahead and change here, is that, again, there's just one bit of metadata that's coming in from Discogs besides the image, the contributors here. But the Discogs information includes an ID, which in some cases corresponds to a work in Wikidata. The Wikidata object will actually have that Discogs ID. We're able to go to Wikidata and get find the match on the Discogs ID and bring back some additional metadata. In this case, we're bringing back the album that preceded this one, the Sinatra and My Kind of Broadway, and the album that followed it. And the links here under the notes section actually go to the catalog. And then similarly in the legend to the Discogs link, the Wikidata link here will take the user to the Wikidata entry for that work. So one other task we had in this portion of the discovery work that we're doing is to just take a Wikidata URI and try to link it to a name authority. So what we were able to do in this case is that the catalog stores an OCLC work ID. So we use that work ID to go to Wikidata and get a Wikidata URI. And from there, we can also then query and get the Library of Congress subject URI. And once we have that URI, we're able to get the label from the Library of Congress subject for this work for Finnegan's Wake. And then what we did is we used that label, and it works behind this browse related items link, and then that this user can then do a search. Essentially, it's like doing a subject heading search within the application, which was a sort of an additional search which doesn't currently exist in our production system. It just provides the user with another way of browsing information about Finnegan's Wake. And so in a way, we've cheated a little bit, and we've started working a little bit on the browse phase of discovery, which is coming up next.
Okay. Thank you. And sure. And thank you, listeners or viewers.